Okay. All right. So, good evening and welcome to Off the Court Basketball Show with me, Wenson Mavoro, your usual host. On this particular platform, as always indicated, we discuss all things basketball, both from a national, regional, and global perspective. As long as it is basketball, this is the platform where we get to talk about it, discuss it, and see how best we can develop the game. And as always indicated, this platform is not meant to be able to have ulterior motives or whatever people may think. Here we endeavor to just have honest and candid conversations to be able to develop the game, to be able to see how best we can move forward. And in doing so, we also, call a spade, but of course, we do it in a respectful way and in a developmental way. Ours is not to blame, but to basically call a spade as it is, and at the same time, offer solutions going forward. So this evening, I'm joined by somebody who's well known from Zambian basketball corridors, and this is none other than Mr. Gibson. I'm sorry, Gibson. Your name, your last name is a bit of a tongue twister. My Shona tongue has been struggling to rehearse this name, all this while. But anyway, as a journalist, one of the things that we get to practice more often is names. So I'm joined by Mr. Gibson Chiliobwe, and we will be discussing basketball development and talking about quite an array of things today. And you are at liberty to interact with us, participate in this conversation as we always do, as we always give you this opportunity. And we are currently live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter under the handle Wenson Mavor. So if you've got questions, if you've got contributions, if you've got suggestions on how best, Zambian basketball can improve or just generally all things basketball, please, you are at liberty to be able to contribute on those particular platform under the handle Wenson Mavoro on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, yeah, I think these are the three. I'm yet to add more, but so far, these are the three where we're currently streaming this show. And Gibson, just to be able to start this conversation, first and foremost, let's get one thing out of the way. Now, not so long ago, obviously, your resignation letter circulated on social media, and a lot of people had a lot of things to say about it. But just to be able to get this thing out of the way as quick as possible, I would like you to, first of all, just begin by, letting us understand what do you have to say about it? What motivated the resignation?
All right. Thank you so much, Winston, for according me the opportunity to be on this show where we talk about everything to do with Zambian basketball and how we can develop basketball as Zambia and other various key stakeholders in this fraternity. Well, yeah, my resignation indeed has been the talk of the day. I've received several calls, people questioning why I had to make that decision. But first and foremost, allow me to mention that the decision I took, this is a well thought decision. I gave it a deep thought. I had to reflect before I made that decision, and I was left with no choice but to make that bold decision and just throw in the towel. So, in terms of what motivated me to make that decision, I'll tell you that first and foremost, I have served on various boards under different portfolios. And when I decided to serve under Midlands Basketball Association, my intentions were pure, my plans were pure, and I had one agenda, and my agenda was to contribute to developing Zambian basketball in my capacity as MBA technical coordinator. And those intentions are still there. Those strategies are still there. I'm not planning to abandon them. but sometimes, many people fail to execute their duties, not because they do not have the ability to do so, but because of certain conditions, certain circumstances surrounding them. You find that they fail to execute their duties diligently. And so that was my situation. Out of all the boards and the portfolios I've held throughout my life, I'll tell you that serving under the Midlands Basketball Association was one of the most challenging, most difficult thing to do because of the conditions that were there. Some of you may be aware of a number of challenges that MBA have been facing internally. Some of you may have some hints, but I will not go very much into details to start talking about some of the issues we are going through. But the truth of the matter is that it was very, very difficult for me to operate under the association. And the way the association is composed, we've got the old folks who've been there, who served under the previous regime. They're still there, and now there's that sort of a cartel which is within the association. And so, when you come up with various ideas, you want to do certain things, it becomes very difficult for you to operate, and as long as the other team is not on board. If you try to ask other members of the association who are not part of the association previously, I'm sure they will be able to share with you one or two things in terms of how difficult it is to operate in the association. So, like I said, I will not go into details to talk about those things. I want to, like I indicated in my resignation, that I decided to withhold the major details why I decided to resign. But the truth of the matter is, it was very difficult for me to operate under the association due to, of course, the number of internal systemic challenges that existed. Yeah.
So, Gibson, you have cited quite a number of things that obviously would interest people, and one of the things that obviously I would like to make mention is the fact that the office that you are holding is a public office, that is meant to serve people, and we do respect the fact that there are certain areas maybe that you would not want to get into with regards to the decision to resign, but on the mere fact that there's the issue of public interest here, people obviously would want to know, like just how difficult, maybe cite an example. And also, when the letter came, the first thing that personally I was proud, okay, when I learned that a person like you is in the executive, because I said, okay, we have different minds altogether. We've got different people this time around, given an opportunity to run basketball, people that we can approach, people that we can go to and say, look, I've got an idea. Why don't we do this? I'm a person that likes discussing ideas and, seeing to it that those ideas are implemented if people are willing to follow through. And in some of my conversations, I've interacted with colleagues, Gibson, I've told them, what about this? And they would say, well, don't you have Gibson's number? Get in touch with Gibson, float this idea to him. He's one person who is accommodative. So that is part of the positive feedback that I used to get with regards your leadership. I'm not saying you're perfect, but I'm just saying people out there, okay, that I interacted with when you were not present would be able to encourage me and say, well, if you think about this, the right person you can speak to is Gibson. Float it to him. He can consider it. He's an open-minded guy. So there is this level of confidence that your peers in basketball, both in leadership and outside, have when it comes to your abilities and your leadership. Now, seeing the letter of resignation, the first question that I asked myself was, what is happening? Is Gibson a quitter? So I would like to get it from you, sir. Are you a quitter? You know, we had hope in you to develop basketball using the position and the best of your abilities.
Well, Wenson, thank you so much for those sentiments and the feedback from the various stakeholders or affiliates we've interacted with in the basketball fraternity. I'm very grateful to hear those things. But like I stated, that this is a decision which took me a long time, and I had to invest a lot of time to think about before I finally made that decision. I'll tell you that I am not a quitter. I've been through worse things, but I just couldn't. I just couldn't continue operating under the umbrella of MBA. And I did mention that in terms of my contribution to developing basketball, in my capacity as Gibson or as a coach or as a referee or just in my capacity as an individual, that will continue, and that is my intention. Like I stated in my preamble, that I will continue doing what I do or what I could do to contribute to developing Zambian basketball. But you see, when there's a system which has been created, and you get into that system or that place or association or an umbrella, and you find that there's a system which has been created, it becomes very difficult for you to operate, especially if you don't fit well into that system. So the only thing you are left with now is to fit into the system. Now, if you can't fit into the system, it will be very difficult for you to work under such a system you cannot perhaps you don't agree with. I'll tell you, you asked me to cite maybe just one example. Technical, being a technical director or a technical coordinator, or that position is one position which is very involving, and in most cases it involves a lot of moving parts, including financial aspects. I'll tell you about just the equipment or the other things we need to ensure that basketball flows accordingly. For example, I'll give you an example. We're supposed to have nets for the hoops. We're supposed to have enough basketball for the teams to be warming with, and we're supposed to have game balls. We're supposed to be repairing the shot clock, the game clock. I'm sure you've at one point experienced a situation where we are playing basketball. Basketball is disrupted because the entire system in NASDAQ goes down, or referees and coaches having altercations because the shot clock had stopped at one point. It's because all those things, they need to be in place. But for them to be in place, we need financial resources to work with those things. But just to get that request done, to say this thing is needed, even a simple thing like a basketball, just a basketball. Right now, I'll tell you that I've been in office for close to 2 years now, but ask how many basketballs we're using. Go to B-League right now and check the basketball they are using. They are always asking for the game balls from the teams. People will bear me witness. We're always asking for basketballs. Nets, we always have to fight just to get a net, which was supposed to buy for 250 kwacha to put a net. Go to Zamshu right now. You'll find that there are no nets there. People are playing basketball without nets. So these are some of the nitty-gritties that over a long period of time now, they will culminate into something big, which we, like in my case, I just couldn't take anymore. I'll talk about for example, recently, there's a trip we had to the Copperbelt MBA CBS Select. We had a budget to work with. We needed to transport people to the Copperbelt.
Now, Gibson.
Yes.
Gibson, before you get into that trip, obviously, I will ask on that trip just to get a bit of some insight from your perspective. But you've mentioned, you've cited an example, and these are conversations that we've had. Personally, as a person that covers basketball, does commentary and interacts with different people, I've also personally wondered why, we would be asking for basketballs from teams. And I've also wondered why it would be very difficult to, say, order a shot clock, okay, from China or from wherever. So we want to know, like, wasn't there money? Where is the problem? And for those that are joining us right now, we've got Trust on Bota, who's following this conversation. We've got John Mwalula Daka, who's following this conversation. And in fact, John asks the same question that I have, which I've just put on the screen right now. Is it lack of money? Where was the problem? Because we ask these questions. The fans ask these questions. They pay on the door when they come to watch the game of basketball. So they want to know, like, where is the challenge? Is it that there's no money for us to be able to buy the shot clock? And these are just basic things. These are things that we should all be concerned about as stakeholders of basketball.
Well, thank you so much for that very important question. Every time we talk about finances, this becomes a very sensitive topic when we start talking about finances. Yes, we do have people who pay at a gate a 30 kwacha every time they come for games, and we have teams paying for affiliation. Every team, they have to pay affiliation, and we've got three categories: the women, men's Super League, as well as B League, and all the number of teams that are in the NBA league, they have to pay affiliation. So yes, the money is there, but I'll tell you that I could say that the money maybe is not in. I'm not a financial person. That was not my area of focus. I was focusing on other things. So when we want to talk about the money, is whether the money is there. Well, you see what happens. You pay when you come for basketballs. People are pay affiliation. So we could say the money is there. Maybe the people entrusted with the money think the money is not enough to do to acquire some of these very important tools that will allow us to run basketball effectively, like basketballs, repairing of shot clocks and the like. These are things we can we can do with ease. We don't require a colossal sums of money to engage, but just to get all those things done, sometimes it's a battle you have to fight. So now you can imagine for the past 2 years.
Why? Is it that there are no systems in place? Is it that there are no systems in place?
Well, speaking of systems, we've got different offices, and one other thing within the umbrella of NBA is, it's every man for himself. I mentioned in the beginning that the issue of cartels within the same umbrella becomes challenging. So if the other guys don't support what you're asking for, that becomes a challenge. Whatever your request it won't pass through. So the systems, well, the systems may be there, but maybe they are not very strong and effective. This is something we need to relook at. We've got the Treasury unit or department. We've got the Secretary General department, the Office of the President, my office as TCs, and the other positions. So all those are systems. But well, if people are following at one point, I'm sure those who belong to some other groups like MBA business, I'm sure at one point you've witnessed a situation where one office is not doing well and they are castigated just there in front of everyone. But remember, this is MBA. We speak with one voice, but people will say, no, that is not my office. But remember, like I mentioned, technical, for me to work, I require resources. And if I require resources, I need to be in contact with the Treasury. Okay, so meaning I'm working with another department. But people say, you are in that department, do what you have to do in your department. But it doesn't work like that. I'll tell you this. I'm coming from development work, or everyone, everywhere you go, check the institutions. We've got one institution with one strategic plan, yet we have different departments, but all of them, whatever works they're doing, they are contributing to that one strategic plan, and every time they speak with one voice. It's not about one holding a position in a different department and another department. That means they will have to work separately, because the things we do, they are intertwined, and these are cross-cutting issues, which whatever I do as technical, it will affect maybe the Treasury or the Office of the Secretary General. But these are things, unfortunately, my colleagues couldn't fully understand. You get it? So I was kind of suffocated. I just couldn't continue operating under such conditions. So I had to throw in the towel, not because I do not have the ability to deliver. I know the reasons why I went into MBA administration. I knew exactly, I had a plan, and the plan which is still intact, and the plan I intend to implement, whether in my capacity as just Gibson or as a coach or as an official somewhere. But my plan is clear, and I intend to do that.
Before we get to David Musonda's question, who's following this conversation keenly, you mentioned something very, very important, the issue of cartels. And anywhere you go, you know, cartels definitely undermine the authority of leadership. And whether we like it or not, you know, if at all we are going to see Zambian basketball develop, these are conversations that we are going to start having. And to everyone listening to this conversation, they must understand that we are not attacking anybody's persona, but we are discussing basketball and how basketball should improve. Now, Ephraim O'Neill Mutondo, who's watching us, Gibson, has a follow-up question on the issue of cartels, which I've just put on the screen there. He says, is the president aware of these cartels? If so, is he paying a blind eye? Meaning, when you discovered, after getting into the system, you discovered to say, okay, right now, I'm in a system that needs a complete overhaul, okay? Did you go to the president and say, look, you are the senior most figure that we have when it comes to basketball administration. These are the challenges that I'm having at this level. Or maybe did you speak with the general secretary at ZBF, or maybe the general secretary at the association level itself, to say, look, these are challenges that I'm having, and I cannot work, I cannot operate like this. Did you engage these authorities?
Thank you, Winston. That's a critical follow-up question. And to be honest with you, you know, we do have a platform where we communicate with each other openly. And I'll tell you what, I'm one person who is, when something is not going well, I'll just bluntly just open up and tell you that this is not how I work, and things are supposed to be in place, or propose to say the best way we might do ABCD is ABCD. Okay, so almost all these things I'm talking about here, these are things I've communicated clearly on the platform. My colleagues are aware about all these things I'm talking about. Their president is aware about all the things I've highlighted here. So it's not that like someone is not aware of these issues. And I'll tell you, well, not confirmed, but I'll tell you that even perhaps ZBF itself is aware of such issues. But like I said, these are unconfirmed issues. But I know that some people are aware about this issue. Internally, as MBA, everyone in the MBA Exco is aware about these things, because I have clearly stated or highlighted these issues on the MBA platform. So everyone is aware about this. The GS is aware, the president is aware. So is everyone who is in the MBA Exco.
All right, now let us go to David Msonda's question. You've talked about you as the National Technical Coordinator having a plan which is very intact at the moment, which obviously you do not intend to neglect, even as you are not holding office at the moment, something that I must commend you for, because personally, I believe that leadership is not defined by title. If you're a leader, you can function without a title and make change wherever you are. So for making that point, I thought I could also just, chip in and say that is a very, very good approach that you have there. But David Msonda says, what's the hierarchy in the association and where does the technical coordinator fall? Because uh, it's like, I'll tell you, as a person from the outside, it's like we just keep hearing positions. Okay, Gibson is technical coordinator. You have zero idea what Gibson does. You've never seen anything that Gibson does. And there are people, a lot of them like me out there, that even wonder that, oh, so there's even a technical coordinator. Just let us help us understand from a hierarchical point of view where the technical coordinator fall within the association, and just basically what role or what job description accounts for a technical coordinator.
Well, thank you so much, Coach Deb. Thanks for coming through with that very important question. So in terms of, if you look at the structure of MBA as prescribed by the Constitution, not the MBA Constitution, but the ZBF Constitution. The first one on top of the chair is the president himself. After the president, you have the secretary general. After the secretary general, you have technical director. I'm third from there, from the president. Number one is the president, the secretary general, then the technical director, then these other positions like treasury, fixture secretary, media, medical, and things like youth and women come up. So in terms of hierarchy, that's how it's structured. President, the secretary general, then I fall right under the secretary general, which is the third hierarchy. Well, in terms of the roles of a technical coordinator, like you've said, that people wonder to say, what does this the technical coordinator do? What are the roles? What are the terms and conditions of the position of technical coordinator? Well, I'll tell you, like you are wondering to say, what has this person been doing? It hasn't been a smooth road, and like I said, it becomes very difficult for one to deliver if certain things are not put in perspective, or there isn't much support to help to help a certain position to execute its mandate. So in terms of the roles of a technical coordinator, generally is to ensure that basketball flows, the game of basketball flows, to ensure that there is basketball development at every level of basketball. If you allow me to go into the specific roles of the TC or regional technical coordinator, one of them, first of all, is to ensure that all the equipment, all the tools that are necessary to ensure that the game flows are in place. What are we talking about? We're talking about having sufficient number of game balls, okay, to allow both teams, when they get on the court, they should have 2 or 3 basketballs for warm up, this side and the other side, plus the game balls that are just seated there. That is basketball. We need to ensure that all the hoops have got proper nets. Okay, if the nets are done, we're supposed to quickly replace them. Okay, we need to ensure that tools like the shot clock, the game clock, and the overall system of the scoreboard is working perfectly. So all those fall under my I mean the TC's mandate. The other roles of a technical coordinator is to ensure capacity building. Number one, capacity building at a level of the coaches. We need to ensure that we conduct clinics to ensure that the coaches, the capacity of coaches are built in terms of upgrading what levels these coaches are at, how many coaches have been trained in the country or in the region. and what certificates do they hold in the region. Aside from the coaches, we need to conduct capacity building activities or clinics for the referees. I'm glad to inform you that so far we've done, I think, 2 clinics that were done, one under MBA, the other one was done, and it was done with
that is for referees.
Sponsorship from other external parties who came on board and put in the resources, and a training was conducted with a professional from Canada who came and facilitated the training, and a number of officials across the country, including officials from schools, came through and participated. So capacity building in these 2 levels, which is the coaches and the referees. So in a nutshell, these are the roles of a technical director. The other thing I forgot to mention is to ensure that the floor, the court, is safe for a game. We don't want to be experiencing injuries because the court is not well cleaned, or the court has got certain defects.
Gibson, allow me to bring in
players.
Allow me to bring in Coach Lish, who's just joining us here. Coach Lish, the former technical director here, Gibson, mentioned something very important. You know, the aspect of training. Okay, training referees, training coaches, and training everybody else. Now, I've watched games. One referee will call a game, say start at 9, and they'll go all the way up until, okay, the last game. For example, Naps are taking on Magic. That's a very big game. And you've got one referee that started with the B League and ends up in the A League to be able to call those games. Coach Lish, would like to hear from you as coaches. Okay, what is your take on this? To what extent do you think they affect, okay, the outcome or just the quality of the game? Just kindly unmute your microphone, Coach Lish. Your microphone is currently muted. Just unmute it.
Okay. Are you able to get me now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay. So I was saying the challenges that that brings about is your players are already know to say, let's say the game is at I'll give an example of the game we're having over the weekend. We're having a game at 14 hours. Let's say they move it to a time that's earlier. It means we're not going to have ample time for us to warm up and to do all these preps that we usually do before a game. So mostly, I think that's the biggest aspect that it's going to affect. Away from that, it also interrupts other programs that you have away from basketball, because you have to plan your day and you see exactly what you're going to have like the whole day. You say in the morning, I get up in the morning, let's say you go to church. From church, you know, okay, 14 hours, I have a basketball game. After the basketball game, you have to prepare the kids for school. So all that is in the plan. So if, let's say your games that were scheduled to be at 14 hours are moved to 16 hours, that disturbs the whole program. So I think that's the only effect that we're going to have to look into as well.
Okay. Okay, interesting take there from Coach Lish. But let me come back to you, Gibson, once again. And this time around, let me go back to some of the messages of people that are watching us currently live. And I've got a gentleman by the name of Aliko Aim Jacob. He says, just a reminder, in 2019, ZBF claimed to have lost is this, oh, this is 800,000 kwacha. Okay, I thought it was 1 million. I was like, okay, where did it come from? So 800,000 kwacha from gate takings due to the COVID-19 lockdown for the same period. So for me, the issue of non-availability of funds is neither here nor there. So the fact that ZBF was able to tell us that during the COVID-19, we forfeited as a result of restrictions and everything, an amount of 800,000 kwacha, meaning we make that much from get takings and other streams of revenue. But then, where does this money go is the question that people are asking. But before you give your comment on that, Gibson, let me throw in a very interesting take that David has given here. Based on the answer that you gave, I followed you keenly. You said you were number 3 in the hierarchy. And according to David here, he says, meaning you did possess some level of authority, some level of influence. And when we talk about authority, we're talking about ability to make decisions on certain things. So when it comes to getting funds to be able to execute some of the plans that you had, some of the immediate needs for the league, such as issues to do with venue, as highlighted by Coach Lish, issues to do with warm-up, basketballs, nets, and all these things. How come you were failing with all that power? Does it mean that there were people that were working against you specifically to make you fail? Or how would a man with the power, it's like the president telling us that, oh, I was unable to do this, but come on, you have the power. You can do this. So what is your response to this?
Thanks, Wenson, and thanks, Coach Dave, for that question. Just before I come back to this one, there was that issue of ZBF losing 800,000 kwacha as a result of COVID-19. Well, I will not comment on that because I'm not privy to that information. Neither am I going to comment on the issues of how much money we make from the gate takings, because that was not my my jurisdiction. That falls.
But did you at any point ever know? Like, did you at any point ever know, for example, as an office bearer, 3rd in the hierarchy, obviously we would expect, well, you may not necessarily make decisions, okay? You may not necessarily interfere with the Treasury Department, but just for the purposes of knowing and accountability to say, okay, from the Treasury Department, this is how much we have. Were you at any point availed that information? And is it in any of your job descriptions or legislation governing you guys as office bearers that you're supposed to be telling each other this information?
Well, that information has never been availed to me, and I'll tell you that in terms of what is contained in the structures governing MBA. Well, in the first place, we do not have any documents governing MBA. Okay, this is another thing perhaps which is contributing to Zambian basketball to develop, but perhaps we can talk about that later. We, you know, if you ask me to say, can you show me your job description or the terms and references of your role, I'll be honest with you that I will not be able to show you that, because there's nothing written about that or any documentation whatsoever. And that is not just me. If you ask any other a member of MBA Exco, they will not give you anything, because simply there's nothing. We do not have any document which is governing us. I'll mention that at the beginning of our tenure, these are the issues we had started bringing up, and I remember the president was keen in trying to drive and ensure that as an association we have these documents in place, like constitutions, things like other legal frameworks that will help us become more formal or be recognized by other stakeholders, because apparently we are under the umbrella of we are an extended arm of ZBF. It's a reason why, if you look at the constitution we're using the constitution of ZBF. If you look at the league and competitions rules, we are using the legal framework of ZBF. But as PBAs, I do not know much about CBA and other PBAs, but for MBA, we do not have those documents in place.
So, so in short, you guys were operating, including the current office bearers, without terms of reference. That's basically what it is at the moment. Interesting. But before I bring in Coach Lish, just briefly, Gibson, here there's a comment from Mambo Musute who's watching us. He says he would like to get a clarification from you as to whether MBA officers operate independent of each other. Clearly, something that I believe you've highlighted here. And then he further asks to say, is there sabotage within the executive? If you guys don't have terms of reference, it's like you're just given a position and say, Lish, from today, you're going to be the security guard for the door. And that's just it. No expectations, no benchmarks, no job description, nothing whatsoever. So, would you say this scenario, lack of terms of reference, system that is retrogressive, cartels being prevalent, are these a sabotage in the system?
Okay, so before I respond to Mambo's Mambo's question, yeah, so I've clearly stated that this is what is prevailing right now in the association. And speaking of offices operating independent of each other, like I said earlier on, you see, this is what is being perpetuated. I am technical. I have to work as technical. I don't want any other person to come into my my job, even if whatever issue you want to discuss is cross-cutting. People, I'm the GS. I have to do GS. I don't have to do any other thing. Or you don't have to come and start meddling in my duties as GS. I'm treasury. This is what I do. But remember, I gave an example of the way institutions work. We have one strategic plan, different departments, but all of them contributing to that one strategic plan, because that's how institutions work. That's how organizations work. We've got different departments contributing to one, and they always speak with one voice. So, well, speaking of sabotage, I don't want to comment on that one. I'll just let that one. I'll just let that one slide. Yeah. But
Okay.
earlier on, you talked about referees. I mean, you talked about me being third in the hierarchy and me having powers. Yes, I do have powers, but remember, there are people above me, meaning I cannot make an independent decision. Okay, any decision I decide to make, it has to be subject to the approval of perhaps the people who are above me. Okay, and or just the entire executive to approve certain decisions that are made. And remember, when we talk about issues of resources, the treasury has to be there to say, okay, we have the resources for this. The SG has to come in and say A, B, C, D before the money is released. Okay, so I cannot just make a decision and say, hey, treasury, there's this thing which requires resources. Can you facilitate the release of funds? Yes, I can say that, but if that will be approved, I do not know, and that is not what I experienced. It was hard to get the funds released. Some funds were released, as for example, for the training we did for the referees. Funds were released, and some funds have been released here and there, like for the nets once in a while, for basketballs, but that has been a difficult and thorny trip.
Okay, and we will come back to that. For now, coming from our inbox as well, I mean from our comment section as well, we've got Iliam Denge, who is joining us, a former RTC and NTC as well. I think it would be interesting to get Iliam to be part of this conversation. So Iliam, wherever you are, please, it would be interesting just to get you to come and give us your perception and perspective as well. And Ricky insists, like everybody else, Gibson, that they still want to know the actual truth you know, of really what inspired your decision to be able to you know, be able to speak. So, but anyway, we'll get to that. So I will try and get Ndenge to be part of this conversation. We will not have him on camera though, but we will have his audio just to get his perspective as well. But let me bring in Coach Lish. You almost started talking about your trip to the Copper Belt, Gibson, before I interjected, and I will get to your side of things. But for now, let me get to the Coach Lish, who was among the team that was providing coaching services to the team that traveled to the Copper Belt. And personally, as a journalist, I'm telling you, I'm enjoying the beef that is there at the moment. I know people argue and say there's no beef, but deliberately I'm going to say there's beef because I want there to be beef so that we can have good basketball. Anyway, that put aside, Coach Lish, we would like to first of all understand, you know, from your perspective as a coach, just tell us, you know, your trip to the Copper Belt. What, before we get to the actual results itself, you know, of us having lost to the Copper Belt, not that the Copper Belt, already I'm getting comments here to say, oh, we beat them, meaning we were beaten. But anyway, okay. But anyway, Coach Lish, from your perspective, we would like to know, okay, what exactly characterized the trip to the Copper Belt?
Really, it wasn't. We actually didn't pick the cream of Lusaka, though there's actually good really players that are actually cream from that.
Come again? You said, I just want to be clear. You said you didn't get the cream.
Yeah, we didn't pick the cream of the team that we. Oh, let me just put it in simple terms. In simple terms, what I'm trying to say is we didn't pick any of the players that are selected from the national team. That's what I mean.
Why? Why?
We didn't pick from the national team because half the time, or if not all the time, players that are selected to go for the national team, the ones that are not selected, what happens to them? So we wanted to give a chance to those that are never selected for the national team or do not make it to the final cut for the national team.
But so, Coach Lish, balance me up on one thing here. Okay, balance me up on one thing here. If you say you are picking players that are not selected for the national team to be able to go and represent, because trust me, whether we like it or not, the competition at that level is quite serious. It is quite stiff. And that is why the Copper Belt picked their best. Okay, and it showed. The result showed. So who came up with the decision that you should pick players that are not in the national team? Is it a consolation? What are you trying to do with these players? Are you trying to make them feel good? Are you trying, like, balance me up here? I'm trying to understand. If a player is not good enough to make it in the national team, why then should you leave a player that is better than the player that you're going to take to the Copper Belt to go and lose?
Okay. Okay, I'll come in after Coach Lish.
Okay.
First and foremost, the players that we actually picked, the pool that we have in Lusaka it's massive. So you can't always pick. You can't always pick everyone. There's certain players that need to get cut. That doesn't mean they're not good players. No. That just means the number that's needed is, we can't exceed that number. Like even from the number that we picked, we actually cut down. We had to cut down to about 15 players. Our initial select was about 23 or 25, but we had to cut it down to 15. So you can imagine, and the 23, these are like really, really extraordinary players. Like these are the cream from their team. So it's got nothing to do with. Sorry.
Well, look, because for me, Coach Lish, I need you to be very upfront with me. I need you to be very upfront with me because, just as an example, okay, just as an example, and these are my boys. I have no issues with this. If
Yeah.
Chongo, as an example,
Yeah.
if Chongo is better than Augustine Kainda, Ogi, why would you leave out Chongo and pick Ogi on the basis that Chongo was part of the national team? But Chongo is better on paper than Ogi. If Mumu was part of the national team, as an example, and Obet Musongo was not part of the national team, why would you leave out Mumu and pick Obet Musongo and take him to the Copper Belt to go and get beaten by the team for John Malola Daka, who's busy laughing at me here? You know, so I need you, Coach Lish, to answer me here, because for me, Coach Lish, I need to understand, are you feeling sorry for these guys? Instead of encouraging them to work hard, why didn't you pick Mumu? Why didn't you pick the usual good players that we have and tell the rest of the guys and say, you go and work hard and sit these guys?
It seriously got nothing to do with picking who's the best at what, but also looking at how we are going to build our players. We were picking kids that are like 18, 19 years old. We have Jacob, who's about 19 years old. We had George, who's about 19 years old. We're not only looking at 2 years from now, no. Because those guys can give us a good 5 years.
Okay.
George is 19. George is 19. We add 10 years to that, he's 29. And that's when most of these guys actually do mature. So we're looking at it from that view. Is Mumu going to be able to play with which example can I give? Is Mumu going to be able to play with George in the next 10 years? Is Mumu going to be able to play with Jacob? Is Mumu going to be able to play with Obi? So we're looking at how we are going to infuse all these other players into the national team as well. So if you sit down and look at it from a view of saying Mumu is going to be better all the time, how long are we going to be using Sylvester for this trip? How long are we going to be using people like Kashishi? How long are we going to be using people like Harrison? So you see, we need to start finding a way of how we can infuse all these young players. And mind you, when these same young players that you say went and lost on the Copper Belt, we're playing the cream of the Copper Belt. And if you watch the game, the scores do not depict what actually happened in the game. I'll give a thumbs up to the guys that I carried because they played their heart out and they showed that they can actually beat the Copper Belt team. If we put into aspect the conditions that we went to the Copper Belt with, and we put in all the situations that we went through on the Copper Belt. Mind you, the Copper Belt is a bit hostile when it comes to Lusaka teams. We faced so many different things, but I will not put that into account and say, oh, we lost because of those teams and whatnot. No. I'll accept the loss and just to add a little bit of fuel to the fire. 3 more games. 3 more games and we're going to have championship. We'll see about what the Copper Belt was saying. We'll see if Lusaka isn't what they say it is. Because now we're going to see the Copper Belt team coming here and the Lusaka team is going there. So we'll actually see if the Copper Belt is actually the Copper Belt that's been trying to make. So
okay, Coach Lish. Coach Lish, I hear you, and I think I get the most important point that you mentioned, the issue of continuity, bringing on these youngsters who have more legs and time to give us. Of course, people like Spoikan seem to still be laughing at us, and John keeps on hitting, and he's completely disputing everything you're saying we lost. Yes, John, we lost. But hey, there's still more games to come. But Coach Lish,
just a quick one.
Before you come in, don't worry, Gibson. I'm reserving you. I'm reserving you, Gibson. I'm reserving you. You are going to speak on this, Gibson. Don't worry. But Coach Lish, you mentioned something about, before I bring in Gibson, whom I've kept on hold for a long time. You've mentioned something very, very interesting. You know, you talk about the conditions that you traveled to the Copper Belt. And David is asking the same question. And this is why I thought maybe you could speak a little bit on this before we bring in Gibson. And David is asking, this one, is it a CBA or the CBA versus MBA? David wants clarity. He says, is it a ZBF or MBA event? Now, that is yours, Gibson. Gibson, you come and speak about this. Lish, I just want you to concentrate on the poor performance. You highlighted some of the conditions, and according to David, there's a lot that's coming from the grapevine, okay, as to what you guys underwent, you know, what you went through to be able to go there. So David would like to know, what are some of those conditions that you talked about, Lish? And the last part again is yours, Gibson. It will come to you, where there's a question on, has a report been done? You know, so Gibson, you talk about the report. You also talk about who actually is under whose responsibility does this particular event fall under? Is it MBA or ZBF? But to you, Lish, let me bring you back. Please tell us, what are some of these conditions that our players had to go through when they traveled to the Copper Belt?
Okay, I think first and foremost, I feel we didn't have ample time to practice. I think we only practiced for 2 days. So the squad was only together for 2 days, and come out and perform like that, I give them a thumbs up. Then secondly, I think the travel date, I think we didn't have enough time to rest, because when we got there, I think we only spent about 2 to 3 hours and we were on the court. So I think that also affected some of the players. They're a bit tired. And then you also know the issues of you get there, you have to eat. Some players don't like eating before the game. Some players like eating before the game. So we struggled on that. We got there a bit late. The guys were not so organized. We had to wait for them to decide on where we were going to spend the night, and lunch issues and stuff like that. So I think that's part of the first part that affected the players. Then secondly, it was I think the officiating was a bit on the offside. We usually complain about the officiating in Lusaka. We talk about Pecos, Weedy, but these guys actually do a tremendous job. And only when you go to such extensions, you actually start appreciating these guys and start understanding to say it's a whole different ball game out there. Like it's really a whole different. Apart from Lusaka, I think the Copper Belt and maybe Kakue and all these Southern Province, I think we need to also put a hand out there and help these referees. There's one really good actually official that I don't remember what his name is, but he was quite great. He was quite good. I think he just needs a bit of motivation, and also we need more of these things. Like let's interact on things like getting refs from there, bringing them here, come and ref some of the games during the season and not only during championship, because then they don't get to learn. And hence, when they come here and they find people like Mweshi, Willie, Billy, and all these other guys that they have, they find it difficult because they have it easy down there where they're coming from. And it gets really hard here because these guys are calling the actual fouls that we actually really follow. And they also understand the game on a different level. So you find it very hard. I don't want to go into details because it gets really hard to start explaining, and it will look like we're looking for a fault in some of the things that happen down there. But overall, I think it brings us back to the same topic that we're having right now. I feel Gibson shouldn't resign. I'm really hurt that the one time that I actually get to work with him, I saw certain things that he actually did because I was working hand in hand with him. For after the game, these guys they actually ate really late. After the game, Gibson and I had to go and look for food. We actually had to park the bus right next to a food truck and get all this food for them. I don't know where Gibson got the money from or what miracles he performed, but to me, that just showed that someone really, really has a heart for this game, and he really wanted these people to experience because he actually went and dipped into his pocket and actually sacrificed and actually got certain things that these players don't even understand to say it was actually Gibson and I who actually talked up to do certain things for these guys. So I'm really, really on the side of not wanting him to actually have resigned because it was a pleasure for me to work with him. It was actually a pleasure for me to work with him. Actually find someone who is willing to go an extra mile just to satisfy like the players that we had and all these other guys that we actually had. Because he was overseeing both the female and the male. So for me, it's a thumbs up to Gibson, and I'm a bit disappointed that he wants to call it not giving up, but I'll call it giving up because he's giving up on us. The players really appreciated him, and most of them walked up to me and said, "Hey, coach, we know what we've gone through and the experience that we've had, and we thank you for according us this chance to represent Lusaka, and we feel disappointed." But I say it's not a disappointment because I looked at everything that went down, and to me, I don't think if the fields were leveled, the Copperbelt team would have beaten.
Okay, interesting take there, Coach Lish. But of course, we've got different comments that are coming through on the screen that keep challenging your responses, and that is the whole idea of this show, to exchange opinions about basketball and do it in such a way that is progressive and developmental. And so far, we are getting nothing short of that. Let me now come to Gibson. Obviously, the question from David was, under whose ambit of responsibility does the CBA MBA All-Star, or I don't know if it's an All-Star or if it's a select game, falls under? And two, Coach Lish has given us a bit of an insight into what transpired with regards to the conditions that surrounded the players that went to represent the city of Lusaka on the Copperbelt. Do we have a report, an official report? Because as it stands at the moment, it can be treated as hearsay. It can be treated as hearsay because Coach Lish was there. He would tell me this. If I interact with my young man, Obet Musongo, he will tell me his version. If I talk to my young man, Augustine Kainda, Ogi will also tell me his version. If I talk to young Big George, he will also give me his version. Do we have an official report on this?
Thank you, Winston. Yeah, indeed, a lot of comments are coming through as we discuss the MBA, CBA, All-Star or Select. Well, most of the things have been addressed by Coach Lish, but the first question before I come to the report is on this event. Was it under MBA, CBA, or ZBF? So if you recall, this is not the first time we are hosting or having this MBA CBA Select. We've been having this in the past years, and this is a ZBF event. Even this year's MBA CBA Select or Oster. It was initiated, it was the idea which came from ZBF. They reached out to the PBAs, the two PBAs, that's CBA and MBA, asking if we could do this, and actually CBA accepted to host this this event. So to answer the first part of the question, ZBF, this is a ZBF activity or event. Then coming to the issue of the report, yes, the report, a draft report is there. The report has not been finalized. Actually, I was just talking to the Kochimbulo and the other people on how best we're going to finalize the report. So what I've done is I've done a draft report, and I'm going to share this report with the delegates I traveled with on the Copper Belt. Then all the information people want to know will be contained in the report that's pertaining to how we traveled and how the games went down. So the report will be circulated once finalized.
Okay, we definitely hope that that report also can be shared and made public, because remember, the public is involved. So it would be interesting for us to also get to see, what will be contained in the report for us to be able to try and hold each other accountable. But Gibson, let me go to a comment from Sis, and Sisi is saying, well, you've answered on the report side for the sake of checks and balances. You've handled that one adequately. But the last part, again, is something that I always try to find out from people that are in leadership, people that have exited leadership, such as yourselves. Sis talks about the issue of accountability. Is there any form of accountability in the Midlands Basketball Association? I mean, your office is constitutional, from the ZBF constitutional, even at that level. Is there some sort of accountability? Because what you described earlier on, the issue of silos, people working separately. If I'm treasurer, I have nothing to do with you. You can't tell me anything. I'm not accountable to you, even when they're cross-cutting issues, as you rightly put it. Is there accountability?
Thanks, CZ. That's a very important aspect in any institution, the issues of accountability and transparency. So thanks a lot for bringing it up. So you see, to hold someone accountable, there should be something they are referring to. I'll take you back to the issues of terms of references. If you get a job, you'll be given a contract which will contain the terms and references, or you get a contract and there will be a separate document which contains the terms and references. Meaning, if I want to hold you accountable for that position you have, I'll be making reference to the terms and references. Now, like I stated earlier, we do not have terms and conditions. How are you going to hold me accountable if you don't have anywhere to refer to? Because if you come to me and tell me, say, Gibson, you didn't do this, I'm going to tell you that, well, where is it written that I'm supposed to do this? It's just, yes, I'm technical, I'm supposed to do this. So it becomes very difficult to hold someone accountable for the position they hold if there's no point of reference. I'm talking about the terms and references, or some sort of a contract where someone is held accountable to say, you were in this office between this time and that time, you were supposed to do A, B, C, D. It becomes difficult for someone to be held accountable. So it becomes very difficult, and it has been difficult to hold people accountable because there's no point of reference. I think that would be my comment on the issues of accountability.
Okay, so David Msonda, before I bring Denge, just to say something on this conversation. For those of you that are watching, we've got another former technical, what do you call yourselves? Technical director again, I've forgotten, you know. So we've got Ndenge, who served in your position as well, and he's with us. So Ndenge, before I come to you, David has a follow-up question. He says, since you've confirmed that it is the Zambia Basketball Federation that had this idea with good intentions, I believe, of the CBA and the NBA to come together, have this game for the purpose of developing the sport, for the purpose of, you know, identifying talent, for the purpose of growing talent, as Coach Leash said. But can you then confirm that since they're the ones that initiated this idea, they basically abandoned you and never gave you anything to be able to support you on this expedition?
Speaking of funds for this particular event, just like Coach Leash mentioned, the conditions under which we traveled were a bit rough, for a lack of better term. And just before we travel, that trip was not going to be possible. I will be honest with you. It was not going to be possible if not for me to push and to run around seeking, financial support, calling different people, writing to different people just to find the resources to ensure that this event takes place. So the question you've asked that this being a ZBF event and what about them contributing to the event? I'll tell you that we reached out to ZBF, and I think a day or 2 days before that Saturday, I think it was on a Friday, just before we traveled on a Saturday, they had some sort of a meeting, and the issue of this trip and us seeking funds from them was on the agenda, and we were told that they did not have resources to contribute to this event. They did not have funds to contribute to this event because there were no resources, according to the information we received. So, yes, ZBF did not give us any funds to facilitate any aspect of this event.
Okay, interesting. Let me now bring on board Iliam Ndenge, who's joining us here. And Ndenge, earlier on, you mentioned something. So for those of you that are watching us right now, Iliam will be joining us via audio right now. You know, I just had to quickly reach out to him and say, hey, please, can you come and say something here? So, you know, today is a Thursday, it's a Junior Friday, so you never know where Iliam might be at the moment. Anyway, I'm just joking. but Ndenge, you said something very, very interesting. You said, as a former RTC and NTC, you know the pain of these positions. From your perspective, Ndenge, just tell us, what do you mean you know the pain of this position? Because you were there before, Gibson.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Hope you can hear me. I'll start first of all. I believe Gibson did a good job, personally, on what I was seeing and what I was observing. And he was ready to listen, which is somehow hard, because when I came in as NTC, as a RTC, that was the first position I did in Zambian basketball. When I joined Zambian basketball, it was in 2014. I just came in direct as RTC. In a certain way, nobody told me what to do. I was in the same position as Gibson. So from there, I had to start hunting and researching, what does an RTC do? You see, on my own time, I had to find ways to say, okay, what does an RTC do? From there, I found out what Gibson was talking about, making sure the court was okay, making sure that everything was in place. Then I think many coaches used to tell me, they used to find me at NASDAQ. Before the referees or the table officials, I was already there to make sure everything was set. Because normally, according to the rules, according to FIBA rules, because if you go in FIBA rules, the table officials and refs should reach the courts 1 hour before the game. Yes, because I'm hearing that games are delayed, but no, the coaches the table officials and refs need to be there an hour before the game. They need to make sure everything is ready. Teams are supposed to reach almost 30 minutes before their game. So I think we just took it too lightly, because I remember as an RTC, to tell you, Gibson, I used to give a lot of walkovers. Okay, you are not there on time. I'll give you 15 to 30 minutes maximum. If you're not there, I'll give you a walkover. I wouldn't mind. I'll give you 20-0. You see, because I realized that okay, we need to be on time. We shouldn't allow certain things to happen. You know, it goes with our professionalism, how we handle the job. And the other issue which is there, I think, which played against Gibson, most people knew him as a statistician. So there is that lack, in a certain way, so to say it, I will say it as it is. I won't beat by the bush, or somehow lack of respect of his person. You see? Because he was not in those circles. So in a certain way, he had to prove himself for people to accept him. You see, which made everything more complicated. So it's like you said, like Gibson said, and even yourself, you said, there are a lot of cliques in our sport, unfortunately. That's why it has not grown so much, which is very, very complicated and hard. So I can almost say that it's sad that you are stepping down. I'll say it very honestly, because you started doing things the right direction. And I know what I almost told you last time. I know that work doesn't give you as much time as you wanted to be able to continue in the position. But if you can just take back your letter in a certain way, continue your plan. Because I can see your plan in a certain way. You're putting order step by step. But just don't give up so easily. You know? As Lish even said, you are not giving. You feel that you have not given up on them, but it's like giving up on them because you have just started the job. You can't just step down after year one. You know? So NTC, at the NTC, it was very complicated. You know, the issue that we have the moment we became a federation, because before we were working under the rules.
So,
yes, go ahead.
So what would like to understand as well is, was there some sort of accountability during your time? Because clearly, from what Gibson has told us, some of the unbelievable structure or unbelievable state of the current leadership in which it is in at the moment, as shared by Gibson, and you clearly said you understand the pain. Was there accountability in your time, or things were as they are now?
Okay. During my time, it was easier because it was just north and south. Okay. So the association, that was my time. So the national accountant treasurer was also our treasurer in the region. You understand? So it made everything easier. You see? There was less drama, I can say in a certain way, than what I'm seeing right now. Because it was somehow centralized. So our treasurer was directly under the national treasurer. So we had clear accountability there automatically because the national treasurer was there. But I think right now it might be more tricky because that's what I can see for him. You know.
So then. So
that's what I can tell you. That's all the difference that we had.
So Ndenge, would you say? I mean, I would like to understand if really this is where we are, gentlemen. Without beating about the bush, does Zambian basketball have a future? Because look, it is a common adage that everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay, for things to move, leadership must be able to take the lead. Leadership must play the steering role. Leadership must be able to have a strategy, communicate effectively with everybody, and say, this is what we're trying to do. We are putting you in this position to give us these deliverables. In the absence of that, Ndenge, do you think that truly anything will come out of Zambian basketball if our leadership is in this current state?
To be honest, Uh, it came to one thing which I told you. I think one day we spoke about it. I said Zambian basketball, in what I see right now, is just like a chill activity between friends.
Mm,
You remember I told you that many times. That as long as we treat it as an activity between friends, we're not going anywhere. Let's just be honest. It's like in business. You won't do business with your friends. You won't. Let's
mm.
treat it as it is. We're supposed to be competition. Do you see competition when it comes to Nasdaq? Seriously. Even if I'm hated right now today, I will say it. Do you see it? We see our players getting high like I've never seen in my entire life. Or we're so-called semi-professional or amateurs. I think even Gibson must be laughing about it because he knows my point on this one. You know, when we want results, we're supposed to conduct ourselves in a certain way. Okay, we shouldn't say, okay, we come to Nasdaq. What else? Have we expanded basketball within Lusaka, even for example? You know, are we expanded? We're not expanded beyond this side of Lusaka,
Mm.
and it's not even the entire Lusaka because I've been seeing that there are those programs that are happening in Kafue with 8 teams. Are we going to Kafue? Because Kafue falls under Lusaka and an NBA, for example. How can we look at Copper Belt? Copper Belt encompasses how many towns? They don't just say, okay, we just stay within Kitwe and finish. They go beyond. Are we going beyond here? You know? So we're still treating it
Okay,
as
so
an HCO
Ndenge, let me just hold you a little bit on that one. David again has raised something very, very pertinent, talking about the issues of cartels. And David would like to find out here. I'll bring you Gibson to be able to comment on this as we unfortunately start winding up on our show. Gentlemen, I know that tomorrow we've got quite a lot of things that we need to do, so we can't go on and on. We have to come to an end. But Gibson, David is asking here, if these cartels exist, and to be very honest with you, I've not heard about cartels from you for the first time, okay? That I have to make very clear. I've heard in separate corridors about the so-called cartels in basketball. David would like to find out, what is the need for these cartels? Because obviously there has to be a benefit of some sort that they have to protect, and in the process possibly frustrate people like you from doing your job. So what is the need for these cartels? And aren't these positions voluntary, by the way?
Interesting question. To start with, is these positions, no one gets paid in MBA or ZBF, as long as I know. But I know that maybe one person gets paid in ZBF, but majority, should I say 90% of the people don't get paid in Zambian basketball because these are voluntary positions. We hold these positions on a voluntary basis. So, well, like in MBA, no one gets paid. As much as I know, no one gets paid. Okay. But speaking of issues of cartels, these internal politics, well, I wouldn't know what people are thinking in their heads. So I'm not going to comment further on this point, like the motive or the intentions between these politics that exists. So that's for people to exculpate themselves. Maybe there are other internal intentions that are there, which I do not know for the time I've been in MBA. But the truth of the matter is, politics is there, and I'll tell you that it's not just here in MBA. Politics is in all the structures of Zambian basketball, including the highest body in Zambia, which is the ZBF. These politics are there. For the reasons I do not know.
Okay, so obviously there has to be a benefit, but unfortunately we've lost Ndenge because I wanted to bring on Ndenge just to be able to speak about what possibly could be in it for the cartels that are working within the system. But I know we've abandoned Coach Leash for quite a long time. As we get to wrap up, Coach Leash, are you still with us? Okay, I hope Coach Leash hasn't fallen asleep from that heavy practice at NAPSA. Okay, so Ndenge is back. Okay, so Coach Leash, with you, I just wanted to get your final remarks before I went back to Gibson. But before you come in, Coach Leash, Ndenge, lastly, there's an issue that David Musonda has raised, the issue of cartels and what is in it for them. Because as far as we know, the majority of positions in the association, including the federation, are voluntary. So what really is fueling the politics in these structures? What benefits are people getting from fighting each other? Are there things that the public should know about that is making these people hold on to these elective positions, yet when you put them to account, they claim that the positions are voluntary, but they don't want to lose them? Your thoughts, Ndenge?
When I came in, I was told about the material magic cartel. To tell you, so that we speak freely. That material the cartel, that heroes play at the cartel. Because I was told that Scads are the cartel, so Scads were the cartel and the Hawks. I was told that Naps also are the cartel. You see, then for me, I was asking myself, I said, what cartel are you talking about when there's no money? There's no money happening here. When it's so volunteer, so voluntary work. So I think most of the time, what I feel, let's just be honest. I know I'll be blunt. We all know here that people bet within Nasdaq. People bet on games. Let's just be honest here.
Okay.
And that's part of the game. That's part of the game. Let's just be honest. I think we've got that tendency of lying to ourselves, of trying to hide the truth of what's really happening in Nasdaq. That happens. Okay.
Mm.
I've heard amounts which were put on the table and I was really shocked. I said, okay, you know. So I think those cartels are there, and it's mostly around bragging rights. That's why they are there.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly around bragging rights. People want to brag that no, our team is making it. Yes, we are big and stuff like that. I don't believe that they're very very constructive because if they were really constructive, would have been somewhere else by now. So
Mm.
cartels are there, but they're not really. Let's say they are not really effective because they're not really helping.
Okay.
It's just about bragging
Interesting
rights.
there. Let me now allow me now to just bring in Coach Lish for the sake of time, because we need to close the show and just allow people to rest. Coach Lish, one of the things that we've been talking about, obviously, with people like Gibson and now Iliam joining us, basically just highlighting some of the challenges at leadership level. And I did ask you early on a question as a stakeholder, as a coach that is running a team effectively. You did highlight some of the challenges that you're having as a result of this same leadership, problems that we're having and how it's impacting you. But as we get to close the show, Coach Leash, I'd just like to find out from you, what is it that you'd like to see, as an important stakeholder involved in the game of basketball where leadership is concerned, change? What is it that you'd like to see change?
I think it's just a few things that need to be changed. It's just things where we should be able to put these things on a level platform. And by that I mean, I'll give you an example. Gibson wants to give up now. Like he's resigning, he's putting his letter and everything. We should be able to reject such things. Like the season's almost over, we're about to have championships and stuff like that. I think we should be able to reject such things and wait for the season to end. And then there's these things of cartels and the likes that everyone is talking about. Yes, these things probably do exist even in other countries, but then are they put out there in the open? How do you curb these things from like what Ndenge has said, to say the Heroes Cartel, the Magic Cartel, the NAFTA Cartel, this, it will only benefit your team, but then in the long run, that breaks the chain, because at the end of the day, it's not only your players from your team that are going to make it to the national team. It's players from different teams that come to form up the national team. So if you're going to have all these cartels, it breaks the whole essence of you having a league and wanting it to be competitive. Just to add on a little bit to everything that we're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, it's the guys from the Copa Belt that actually hosted this tournament. And they looked quite organized. They had one of the biggest musicians that we have in Zambia, Y-Celeb. They had Nando. They had all these other people that were advertising at that event that we went to. How come we don't have this in Lusaka? How come we don't have people wanting to come on board, come and do these things? Because from what I saw down that side, there was a lot of advertisement from insurance companies and all these other guys that were there. So how come it's so hard for us in Lusaka to do or host such events? And if I'm not mistaken, there was a tournament before that where people were probably winning. I think Buffalo's that won that tournament. They were winning, they were getting away with prices that are, I would say, quite ridiculous compared to what we get in the national championship and all these things. So I think if we were to cut down these cartels, I think these things would actually allow even other investors, because then there would be accountability for all these things that people are doing. So it still comes down to one thing. Let's have accountability for these things. Let's cut down on these cartels and let's just progress as Zambians and see these things happening. It's a shame that it comes down to things where just recently I saw posts on people laughing at Munalisand and saying they came out at that stage. It's a shame because Munalisand wasn't going there just as Munalisand. They were representing a club from Zambia. So if we're laughing at these things, we're laughing at Zambia, and at large, we're laughing at ourselves. So I think we need to cut down these things. It's just small things like that where you're not comfortable seeing other players from other teams succeeding, and you want to cut that down. So let's cut down on these cartels. Let's just encourage each other. Like I want to believe it's a bigger picture.
Oh yeah.
It's a bigger picture.
All right, Coach Leish. So just allow me, Coach Leish, to be able to bring in Iliam just to give his final remarks. Of course, today we're talking about basketball development, and we were discussing quite a lot with regards to leadership. And we just want to find out, Ndenge, briefly, so that we can close the show, what your thoughts are with regards the current state of Zambian basketball. What do you think needs to be done for us to be able to develop, for us to come out of this quagmire that we're currently in?
Okay, I'll just say let's stop treating basketball as if it's just a game between friends. You know, we let people just go when they go there. My friend, I see how coaches behave among themselves and players behave among themselves. Overall, we're not really competing. We're just chilling between friends. In terms of leadership, I don't think that they are failed, because if they are failed, I think when I came in at the point, I said, look, I would say just the foundation are not ideal. The foundation are there. We just need to implement them. We don't need to run away from them. They are there. Why are we afraid of
So,
implementing what is already? Mhm.
But Ndenge, just to interject, if
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
foundational if the foundational documents, for example, are there to be able to bring us or set us on a path where we can begin to grow as a game, and the leadership is not
Mhm.
implementing those policy documents which are there, isn't that failure?
You and I, we know. You and I, we know. But I believe I always give benefit of doubt to everybody. That's how I've always been. So maybe they don't understand the document, and there's need of them having workshops for them to understand the document which is at hand. Because that new constitution was given last year. It was at the last elective AGM. That's when we had the new constitution also implemented. So if people didn't really truly understand what's their role, let them have workshops around it. Just for the PBAs with the federation, so everybody shares so everybody truly understands the new constitution. I think that that according to the new constitution, the coaches association is supposed to be there, but up to now it has not yet been registered. Players, nationally, they're supposed to have an association. Up to now, I don't think they've got any association up to now. Officials, at least,
So who's supposed to
officials
do all
are
these things?
structuring themselves. You know, we talk a lot about officials, but
So who's supposed to do all these
everything
things?
is provided within the constitution. So coaches should come together, players should come together. They were told already. The first chairperson
Okay.
for the players was Sipo Nakarova, for example. He tried
Mm,
a meeting for the
he
players
tried.
before the coach.
Why did he try? Why didn't he do the job? Why did he try instead of doing
We
the
are all
job?
stakeholders, you see.
Mm,
So when you take it differently, you look at things differently. You can't expect 5 people to run the entire country.
hmm
That's impossible. Even in Lusaka, you can't
hmm
expect 5 people to say, okay, they'll do everything.
Yeah.
I would say Gibson needed help from the people who are within to help him out
Mm,
because there are a lot of people around him.
hmm
So we can't say no. Only 5 people are going to change everything. That's impossible. Let's just be honest. Okay,
Okay,
that's
Ndenge, thank you
impossible.
very much. Unfortunately, allow
You're
me to
welcome,
bring
my
in
brother.
Gibson now to be able to close this
Okay,
conversation.
go ahead.
Gibson, we would like to find out from you. Obviously, I mean, the fact that you're here for me really is massive. I respect you for this. Just to be able to come out here, talk to everybody else, interact with everybody, and just converse with us with regards Zambian basketball. Really, for that, I respect you. And we just wanted to hear what are some of your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Winston, for bringing me on the show. It's been a good interaction, and thanks a lot for all the people who came through. Coach Lish, Mr. Ndenge, and other people who are following us through the commentary section. We are so grateful. My closing remarks will be just to talk a little bit on the structures for us to develop Zambian basketball. I think we need to strengthen and formalize these structures, because I'll tell you that most of these structures we have are not well structured. They are not formalized. So if we can do that, I think it's going to help us. We need to have the coaches association formalized and up and running. We need to have the referees association up and running. We need to have all the PBAs on board to contribute to the overall goal of ZBF, and we also need ZBF itself as the overall and organizing body for Zambian basketball to also try and work with these PBAs, because as PBAs, these are the extended arms of ZBF. but we need ZBF to be able to work closely with all the PBAs in Zambia. And the other thing we need to do is we need to go back to what happened to college basketball, what happened to schools basketball, because this is where we're getting the players. We need to get the players from schools. We've got a lot of talent around, but we are not scouting. We are not going out to these schools to try to formalize this relationship between the schools, the college, because it's a transition path where a talent from high school gets into college, they continue with that talent, and after they exit tertiary education, then they get to join the amateur league, the one we have, MBA, CBA, and other PBAs across the country. So we need to strengthen all these structures and go back to issues of scouting, starting basketball from the schools all the way to the highest league we have, which is MBA, CBA, and other PBAs around. I think if we can do that, and just issues of politics has really killed or derailed the development of basketball in Zambia. And the problem is these politics are not just existing in MBA or ZBA, they are almost in all the structures. Okay, ZBF itself, they have their own politics. MBA, we have our own politics. CBA, they have their own politics. Referees, so these politics are everywhere. And for as long as politics are at the center of management of basketball in Zambia, well, we'll be talking about basketball development for the next 10 to 15 years, and nothing is going to change. So we have a long way to go. Wenson, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me this evening on Off the Court, a basketball show specifically dedicated to be able to discuss basketball, possibly make suggestions, that can improve the game. And as I always indicate, we don't come on this platform to be able to insult anybody, but we come on this platform to discuss basketball as it is. Here, we do not massage the truth. We talk about the truth as it is with respect. So to Coach Leash, thank you on short notice for joining me, just to be part and parcel and add your voice to this conversation, make a few clarification with regards, the CBA trip. And I know that there was a lot that was happening with regards that trip, and a lot of people had questions, and not to take away from any players, and this is something that I would like people to understand. We're not saying Obi did not deserve to be on that team. George, Jeremiah, and the rest of the people did not deserve to be on that team. I mean, they're good players. We've seen what they're capable of, but we just needed to understand and ask the questions that the public had with regards to that particular outing as a way of promoting accountability. So to Coach Leach, thank you for coming out here. Thank you for taking the time to be able to explain, making yourself available and just explaining a lot with regards to the game of basketball, clarifying a few things. We really appreciate you taking time out to help us understand also, what was in the mind of coaches with regards what really happened over there. And to Iliam, thank you so much also just for coming. And this gentleman, you won't believe, I just dropped him a text and I said, look, I know you might be having your own Junior Friday wherever, but bro, please step aside for 3 minutes. I need you to be part and parcel of this discussion, and for you to be able to come through and just to be able to share and be part of this conversation, for me, really speaks volumes to the commitment that you have to improving the game, at this level where we are, where we can discuss progressive things. So Iliam, thank you very much for just coming through and enhancing this conversation. And of course, to the main man of my show today, and that is Gibson. Sorry, I won't say your star name again. Otherwise, I'm going to be penalized. You're a referee. I might just be given a technical foul right here. So I wouldn't say your surname for the sake of. But thank you very much, Gibson, for coming through. Like I said earlier on, I really, really respect you for coming through, just to be able to, give us an insight into what is happening as critical stakeholders. What you've done for me, and I'd like to clarify to everybody, from my perspective, has nothing to do with blaming anybody or trying to clear yourself from anything. No, the way I look at this, and I must say this from everybody, I mean, for everybody to hear, is that these are the conversations that we're supposed to be having. If we don't call a spade, then we are not doing ourselves a favor. It's high time we stop massaging the truth, but call things as they are. You know, so just to come here, allow everybody to ask you questions, voice out their opinions, for me, takes a lot of courage. And the message is very clear. People would have loved for you to stay in that position, to serve within the rank and file of basketball leadership. But unfortunately, certain tough decisions have to be made, and such is life. So Gibson, thank you very much for honoring the invitation and the people's wish to come here and just to be able to clarify a few things. To everybody else that was joining us online, I know Nicholas Mvula was joining us all the way from the Republic of Ireland. We've got people from the Copper Belt doing the most on this particular show. And when I say people from the Copper Belt, I'm not talking about Spoikan, who only wants to be from the Copper Belt when CBA beats MBA. No. I'm talking about people that are truly from the Copper Belt. You know, people that you know, Spoikan abandons us just after we got beaten. Spoikan denied us like Jesus denied Peter, you know. So we understand, you know, they say you can take a Coppola from the Copper Belt, but you can't remove the Coppola from, you know, a person from the Copper Belt. So we understand no matter what we do to Spoikan, he's always Copper Belt. But thank you very much for being active on the show, my brother. I appreciate you. David Musonda, Ephraim, you know, Nambela, Mambo. You know, the list just goes on. John, Ricky, and everybody else that took part in the conversation, thank you very much for taking part and just being part and parcel. And I believe that these conversations one day we'll be able to look back and say, well, we played our part. You know, we talked about what needed to be done. And when the people that are in leadership decided to listen, here we are. And I must make mention, we still respect people that are in leadership within the rank and file of basketball. No matter what we say here, we still respect those people. They are critical stakeholders. They are our leaders, but we will keep reminding them where we feel they need a nudge, where we feel they need to do certain things to improve the game. So to everybody, gentlemen, from me, Winston Mavoro, it's now time to say bye. So thank you, gentlemen. Good night. And to all of our people that took part and our fans, those that follow this show, thank you, and we will see you next week. Remember, you can let us know some of the topics that you feel we can discuss on this platform, the people that you feel we can bring on this platform to have conversations with regards to basketball. And remember, I always say, we don't come here to attack individual or personas. We come here to discuss the game of basketball and stakeholders involved. So good night and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.